There really isn't anything quite like throwing a disc golf disc as hard as you can and watching it fly, getting that full S-curve flight on a big open field and just hitting that nice max distance when you just throw it just perfectly and get way out there as far as you can hit it. Now, doing that successfully sometimes takes a lot of effort beforehand to have good form, to be able to actually throw far and to do it consistently. I know in the off season, I've been spending a good amount of time working on improving my form and getting a bit more distance through various different ways. And I'm sure some of you have done the exact same thing and are excited to get out there and test out your new form techniques and even improve throughout the season. There is no shortage of content regarding form tips or distance tips, basically anything to throw further in disc golf. So this is a video I want to make to caution you on your journey so that you can get the most out of those videos, out of working on your form, and actually achieve your goals of throwing further. I myself have probably added about 200 feet of distance since I started playing disc golf, so certainly I myself am a good case study as someone who's actually been able to do it and get the work done. I've also helped quite a few people through lessons add distance to their throws as well. So not only do I know how to do it for me, I know how to do it for others. I have a lot of information on how to actually do this stuff. So here are my sort of harsh realities on what it actually takes to throw far. Okay, number one, fitness matters. If you look at the top throwers in our sport, none of them are out of shape. Anyone that can throw 600 feet, 550, whatever, all these guys on tour, they're not slouches. They might not be big and buff like Ezra Aderhold. You know, Gannon might be kind of skinny, AB's kind of skinny. They're in good shape. They're fast twitch muscles that they use to throw are actually in pretty good shape. They are healthy, they're lean. These are all things that make it a lot easier to throw better, to get into the positions that you have to in order to hit the power pocket, to really let the disc fly out of your hands. Being in good shape, being lean, being fit, these are all really important factors for being able to throw further. So if you are someone who's out of shape, who's overweight, who has bad cardiovascular health, these are all things that are gonna make it way harder for you to get distance. And you can fix a lot of things with your form, but as soon as you can like lose the weight, get in shape, get some cardio in, like actually improve your fitness and your overall health, that will be one of the biggest factors in the early time to actually throwing further. It's obviously not the most important factor, but I think it's neglected a lot when a lot of people talk about throwing further. Just getting in shape will help a ton of people. Okay, number two, is it takes a lot of time. For most people, it is going to take a long time to actually see significant distance gains. No single tip is going to make you instantly start throwing further. There are maybe edge cases where that's the case, but for the vast majority of people, a single video isn't gonna just unlock the key that you need to add 50 feet or 20 feet or whatever it is to your distance. It's gonna take time, and even if there is a form tip that does help you a lot, it's gonna take time to revert your old habits and actually tack on the new habits and become used to doing them. Doing that takes time, learning takes time, putting in the field work takes time, figuring out just what it is that you have to fix takes time. All of this is a long, tedious process. It takes time and it takes a ton of effort. So anytime you see a video that says, instantly add 50 feet to your throw, be very wary of that, because I've never seen anyone implement a form tip and throw 50 feet further instantly. It's never happened in a single lesson that I've ever done. I've never heard of it happening. Okay, number three, and it's pretty directly correlated with the previous tip, the amount of work you put in will directly correlate with the results that you get. It takes a ton of effort and a ton of work, and you have to put in that effort and work in order to see gains, in order to see results. If you're the person who's going into your garage the whole off season and taking videos of your form and taking notes and watching videos and studying pros form and like doing this over and over, even going to the gym, stretching, fitness, all this stuff, you will see results because you're putting in that work, getting out into the field and throwing, going to the course and trying out your new stuff, doing all this stuff over and over and over until you get it right. The people that actually put in that work and spend the time and put in all of that effort to actually get better, they will see results. Some people don't want to put in the work, they don't want to put in the reps, they don't want to go do field work every day. That's fine, you're just not going to see results as quickly as someone who is going to go out every single day and work at it. Hey, before we get to the rest of the tips here, I got a new code at otbdisc.com to start off the 2025 season. We went with code CHILLY at the end of the year. Now in 2025, we're going to use code WARMUP. So we're going to warm up It's going to start getting nicer out. We're getting ready for the season. Use code WARMUP for free shipping at checkout. Okay, number 4. This one is actually, I think, maybe the most important one of all. The order here doesn't really matter. I kind of put them in whatever order I came up with them. But this one is extremely important. You are your best coach. If you want to get better, you have to learn how to analyze your own form. No single coach is going to make your form perfect. It's going to take you in looking at what you're doing, looking at the small things you've changed over time, understanding the small intricacies of your form and the little things that maybe isn't as easy to see on camera, in person, or on video. Only you are going to be the person that knows that best, and therefore you are going to be the best person to coach yourself and to figure out what it is you need to fix. I've had many people try to give me form tips on certain things that I'm working on, and I really truly believe that 90% of the distance gains that I've gotten and the improvement that I've gotten with my form has come from my own analysis, me looking at other people's form and trying to figure out what it is about my form that needs to be fixed. It's pretty rare that someone else can step in and fix everything for me. And I think that kind of goes for everyone. You can have people point things out from an outside perspective, but when it comes down to it, you're gonna kind of be the last step in, am I actually gonna figure this out? For example, I had an issue where my thumb was coming off the disc a little bit, which was screwing with my grip, messing with my release. It wasn't getting me on a good power pocket or pull through, and I just don't think any coach would have ever figured that out. I think I could have gone to 100 coaches and maybe one of them would have seen that as an issue. It's just something that's so small, so difficult to actually see. It's really something more of a feel thing that I have to figure out in order to fix for myself. Piggybacking on that a little bit to point number 5, the smallest details matter. The smallest details sometimes can matter a lot, because those are the things, again, that people aren't going to see, that only you are going to be able to figure out. When I look back at my old form, when I first started getting into fixing this stuff like 2-3 years ago, I really thought I had really good form. I really thought I figured out a ton of things. And to my credit, I did fix a lot of parts of my form, but I really felt like I was really close to having really solid form. And just 2 years ago, even a year ago, I clearly was way off the mark on what I actually wanted it to be. And I'm sure a year from now, I'll look at my form now and see a lot of small things that I had to improve on and do better. Eventually, you probably come to a point where you fix a lot of those things, but first couple years of your journey of getting to throw better, there's gonna be a lot of things you don't see right away, and there's gonna be a lot of small details that you won't notice, but as you work on them, you'll look back a year ago and you'll say, wow, I really thought my form was great, and it wasn't. Because there's a lot of small details that you just aren't picking up on, and tweaking each one of those as you move along will create a big change over a long period of time. Someone who has maybe somewhat unconventional form is Ricky, and you can see parts of that in his old form, but go watch videos of Ricky throwing 10 years ago. His form looks different. He's clearly made changes throughout the years, every year, and is a far different thrower now than he was 10 years ago. And he's a very, very, very good player. He was a very good player 10 years ago. But I really think it's those small details that you make little by little. Oh, let me just fix this little angle thing with my elbow. Let me kind of move my leg in this certain way or create this angle a little bit differently, and then just kind of tweak that and get it all ingrained in your brain. And before you know it, your form's gonna look totally different. Okay, number 6, you will get stuck at certain distances. You will plateau. It will be very frustrating. I know, because it's happened to me many times. I've seen it happen for a lot of other people. Sometimes you get to a certain point where you just can't throw that much further. Everyone's form is gonna have a limit for how far they can throw for them, even if they're in good shape and can move their arm really fast. So maybe fixing some form things and then pushing yourself further after making those changes will help you get that little bit of changes. But sometimes it's hard to know what that is. When you're stuck at those distances, it can become really discouraging. But you have to know if there's more that you can get out of yourself. Also, if you have really good form and you feel like there's not a whole lot you have to change, like I said, you can think that and be wrong. It's happened to me many times. But if you think you do have pretty good form and you could be throwing better with that form, sometimes just training the muscles that are throwing and training your nervous system to be able to move faster, those are two things that just take time and reps. And sometimes just going out and throwing, sometimes training harder is gonna help you get over that hump and throw a little bit further. A lot of times I also think it's form changes, and sometimes an outside perspective can help you with that, but there's gonna be plateaus, it's gonna be difficult, and you're gonna have to figure out what it is to get over those humps. Number 7, sometimes you have to break down bad habits you've created and regress a little bit in order to get better. If your power pocket is just garbage and you get your arm way out here in front of you whenever you throw, and you really got to get your arm in here in that nice explosive power pocket position. That might feel really awkward for you, and it might actually reduce your distance. And you might think, this is stupid. I can throw far doing this. Let me just do that and I'll be fine. And that's fine if you don't want to throw any further. If you want to get better though, sometimes it takes taking one step back so you can take 2 steps forward. It's going to take some effort to unlearn the bad habits you've created and build that solid foundation. Because at the end of the day, that solid foundation is what you need to build off of. You can't build off of a shoddy foundation because you're not going to be able to go very high. It's going to come crashing down. You're not going to be able to throw very far. You have to go back, fix the bad habits, relearn some things, and then build your way up from there. Otherwise, you're just going to find even more frustrating plateaus than if you're building from a good foundation. Number 8, kind of similar to the last point. Sometimes it's going to be very difficult to implement certain changes. This is one that I can definitely relate to, especially in the past couple of months. I had a really hard time getting my off arm to do what I wanted it to do and to look good, and I went through a lot of changes and ways of doing things to get it to work well. I think I'm in a pretty good spot with it now, but if you watch my last couple of videos, you can see that I've been messing around with it a little bit. Sometimes there's just gonna be things that for whatever reason, you really have a hard time getting yourself not to do, and it's gonna take a ton of reps, a ton of time, a lot of thinking about it, and figuring out how to like tweak things in the right way or do things in a way that works for you, right? Everyone does stuff with their off arm a little bit differently. Everyone has their run up a little different. Everyone kind of holds the disc in a different grip. Like it's gonna take some time to figure out how to do it in a way that works for you, but is also the correct way. And sometimes it can be really, really, really frustrating, especially when you feel like you've worked on something for like days or weeks or even months, and then you go and watch a video of yourself and you're still doing it wrong. Especially if you've been working on it and then you go to a tournament, it can be really easy to kind of revert a little bit. And so it's important that you remember that it's gonna be hard, that you're gonna get stuck at spots, you're gonna like revert back, you're gonna not be able to just get that one thing to actually work and do it, but you have to just keep trying, keep putting in the reps. Eventually, you will move past it and it will become second nature. It will start to feel normal. It just takes time. But if you give up and feel like it's not possible, that's where you're gonna fall apart and it's not gonna work. You just gotta keep pushing forward, keep putting in the reps. It will eventually start to feel good and make sense. And that's kind of like the big moment where you really feel like, oh my God, my form is actually really good. All right, number 9. Sometimes you're gonna have to try things that might not work. Maybe you're gonna try throwing fan grip for a while. At the start of last season, I tried throwing my putters and mids with fan grip. Didn't work for me. Did that for like a little while. Did it for a tournament even that I did kind of well in. But it just ended up not really working for me. I just like throwing pretty much everything on a power grip. Maybe you try, throwing a different angle with certain discs. Maybe you try something a little bit different with your run up. Maybe you try doing a little bit of a hop instead of like a smoother run up. Or maybe you instead of having a less smooth run up, you kind of like run up like James Conrad a little more. Like there's gonna be things that you might wanna try out. Maybe you try and emulate a certain pro in a certain way. Stepping outside of your comfort zone, trying things that are different for you. One, it's gonna teach you to learn to change things about your form. Once you can learn to emulate those things, like someone like AB, who I can watch, emulate someone else's form and imitate someone else's form, that's a really hard skill. That tells me that he puts in a ton of work working on his form and becoming a really good thrower, clearly because he's like the furthest thrower in the world, basically. But he also clearly has a very great mind-muscle connection with a lot of the parts of his body and really understand what makes form work. And he can see someone else's form and be able to do it because he knows how each part of the body is gonna move. I think it's really important to be able to learn how to do different things differently and kind of try to emulate different people and try different stuff out, especially when you're learning. It'll teach you to be a bit more adaptive, to be a bit more malleable, and it will also lead you down roads that sometimes won't work, and that's fine, but sometimes they'll get you towards something where, oh, hey, this actually really works for me. I think I'm gonna keep doing that. And then you find enough of those, and then you eventually create your own form. All right, number 10. This one is, maybe doesn't apply to everyone, but I think it applies to most people. Max distance lines are just not the same as a golf shot. If you can go out into a field and throw a big Anheuser turning out max distance line with like a 165 gram driver, great, fantastic, that's so fun. Go throw a 400-foot dead straight shot with a 7-speed. Not the same thing, not at all the same. When I first started trying to throw far, I spent a lot of time just throwing those big max distance lines because that was the way to throw as far as possible. I wanted to see the big number on my rangefinder, on my U-disc or whatever, or just see it go far. And that's fun and all, but that never helped me in tournaments. It took me a while after being able to throw pretty far on those max distance lines to learn like, oh, okay, I still have to fix a bunch of things because I need to be able to throw 450 to 500 feet on like a little straight hyzer flip dump out, you know, instead of a big swooping out max distance line that's just not going to work on almost any shot in a real tournament. Now, some of you might literally not care about playing in tournaments or hitting, you know, just certain lines on the course. Maybe you don't care about golf lines at all. Maybe you're like Nick Crush, who just basically goes out into a field and throws big distance shots, or at least that's what I think. I don't actually know if he like plays a whole lot of disc golf. You know, some people do just like throwing far and that's it, and that's great. I think the majority of people, though, they like playing disc golf. They want to throw further so they can do better on the course. They can attack certain holes. They can throw different discs on certain holes. And if that's the case, I would shy away from throwing those max distance lines when you're practicing. It might be a bit of an ego hit. You might not be able to hit those distance that you type in your Reddit comments, but I think it's important that you learn to throw in a way that's actually useful to you, even if it hurts the ego, right? Just learn how to throw good golf shots and you will see results if you train that. If you're training only max distance, your golf shots aren't going to be as good. You're not going to be able to throw as far that way, and it's probably going to lead to some bad form habits. Number 11, this is the final one. There is a lot of bad information out there. There's a lot of amateur disc golfers, amateur coaches maybe, that are trying to create a name for themselves online, that are trying to grow their YouTube channel, their Instagram page. They're trying to create catchy thumbnails and titles and get views. And in doing that, they're just kind of throwing everything at the wall, doing whatever, and not really understanding the process, not really understanding how to teach people and how to communicate that with you. And also, like, maybe not even having much of a vetting process for themselves in whether or not these are actually good pieces of advice for people. I'm not going to name names, but I've seen quite a few YouTube channels and videos, Instagram reels, shorts that just, they don't feel like good advice. They don't feel like a person who knows how to teach people, who knows how to like do that process and communicate that with people. It kind of just feels like this is something that I thought of and 30 minutes later I'm making a video about it. When I put out videos for my tips, I usually spend days or weeks thinking about it, working on it, figuring out how to communicate it with my audience, making sure it's actually useful to me. Pretty much every form tip that I've talked about in a video, I use still to this day when throwing. This is all things that have been along my journey of actually getting better, and I actually can throw further. My form is actually genuinely better now. It's not like I'm just trying to make a little bit of content and then put it behind me and not care. This is all me actually trying to get better. So I think it's important to pay attention to who's teaching you things. Are they actually a good player? One, you don't have to be a good player to be a good coach, but that's kind of just one little check. Is this person actually good at disc golf or no? Do they have results themselves? If they're giving you tips on how to throw further, surely they have to be implementing them into their own form. Are they able to implement them and do better? Are you seeing them throw further and become a better player over time? Or are they kind of the same and these tips are not really getting you or them anywhere? Try it for yourself. Do these tips actually work for you? Or is this, again, just someone just peddling nonsense? And also, do they have a track record of giving good advice, of helping other people, of having, you know, clients or coaching experiences where they actually can help people throw further? It can be easy to caught up in the weeds with all these different tips and chasing for all these different things. But at the end of the day, all these tips that I've put together are really what's going to matter. Having a good vetting process for the type of content you're going to consume and who you're going to actually listen to, instead of just clicking on every single form video and just trying to mash it all into your brain, because then you're going to have a lot of bad information in there that's going to hold you back because you're just listening to tips and people that don't really know what they're talking about or just aren't communicating it very well. I don't really mean to throw anyone under the bus, which is why I'm not going to say anything, but I have seen some content that is a bit questionable. And that's not saying mine is perfect. I'm sure I've given some not so great tips before. You know, I'm obviously also learning, and that's not like a knock on anyone that's trying to do this. Clearly, I've gotten better at it over time, and you know, it's not necessarily a bad thing. I'm not saying that they're doing it in bad nature. But yeah, those are like the things I try to keep in mind with form stuff. Like I said, the most important one, learn to be your own coach. No one's gonna help you more than yourself, and then keep everything else in mind. It's gonna help you throw a lot further. I'm going to be coming out with more form videos. I have some stuff I've been working on with my form. I want to make a couple videos for each little thing that I've worked on. Obviously, once there's not snow and 50-mile-an-hour winds outside, yes, 50 mile an hour. There was 50-mile-an-hour winds like 2 days ago here. But I want you to keep all this stuff in mind, whether you're watching my videos or anyone else's, when you're implementing these form changes and working on this stuff. This is probably more important than any other form video I'll put out there because it applies to everything, and without it, if you don't follow these sort of tenets of advice, you're not gonna see very much distance gains at all. Anyway, that's my little rundown of how to actually throw further. I hope it was helpful. I'll see you next time when it's a little warmer out.